All right. Hello there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Masmorra.
And I'm TheViper.
And this is episode 7 of the Town Center, a monthly podcast dedicated to all things Age of Empires. Today, we're back to Gamer Legion's gaming house. And as promised, all the way from Florida, we're joined by T90Official. He is one of the most popular casters in our scene. And with a 340,000 subscriber YouTube channel, also one of the most successful and influential content creators. Tristan, good morning to you, my friend, and welcome to the Town Center.
Good morning. Nice hype there, Nelson. I wasn't expecting that. Ooh.
Hey, man, I've been waiting for this episode for a long time, right? And I promised it would be spicy, so you better spill some beans here, bruv.
All right, beans are ready to be spilled.
Can you tell that Nelson has started saying bruv?
He's
getting so
is it
hip.
a new? Is it a bad habit, or you?
Well, you
okay
say that
with saying it,
when
Nelson?
you're like 15 years old. You say it. So
I've been infected.
I've heard you say it as well, Viper. To be fair.
yeah, I say it like sarcastically to make fun of people.
yeah, it's like the meme.
Okay, bro.
Yeah.
You'll find
Anyway, Tristan, I gotta say, you're looking pretty fly, bruv. I have been losing some weight.
Oh God, I have a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, rebounding from the COVID times, So
All right.
as I'm sure many people can relate to.
Yes, bruv.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask, but has the wedding already taken place, or is it still coming?
We're a couple years off. It's all right. I wasn't expecting. Yeah, I wasn't expecting for some reason once we got engaged for everyone to ask about the wedding all the time because I just forgot.
What do you mean? You make it
Yeah,
public, people
but-
ask about it.
True.
I know. Yeah, I was like, why are people keep asking? Oh yeah, that makes sense. But no. So she's gonna be graduating from grad school in a year or two, and so it's just nonstop work for her. So we're like, our lives aren't going to change. We already live together. We'll do the wedding once things are settled down and can plan a bit more. So
When the time
That's
is
the
right.
plan.
When the time is right,
Yep.
that's it. All right, my friends, in today's show, they are finally free. After 2 years streaming exclusively on Facebook, T90 and Viper have now both announced they'll continue their journey somewhere else. In the case of T90, we now know that journey will see him return to Twitch. Viper has yet to make an announcement on that front, so we'll see if we can extract some information out of him today. On this whole Facebook thing, there's obviously a lot to talk about, so I'll do my best to try to cover, all the questions and concerns I've seen expressed around the community. Then the Titans League Season 3 is now complete, and we're going to hear you guys' thoughts on it. On one hand, we have a top 2 finisher in the tournament, and on the other hand, we have the tournament host, so this should be pretty fun. We're also going to discuss Warlords 2, the future of the competitive scene, and of course, the new DLC, The Mountain Royals, that has just been released. I mean, as we were talking, it still hasn't been released, but it will have
Tomorrow,
been released.
right?
31st.
Pretty sure it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Another thing that hasn't been published yet, but will be by the time this episode, is something that's going to take place in this very house.
Oh, we're revealing it already?
Yeah, I was not talking about something else. It was something else. I'm not sure if you were going to bring it up later, but NAC. NAC 5.
To those of you who've been paying attention, Neely has been kind of giving like a couple of
Countdown.
hints over the countdown. So NAC 5, indeed, we're going to bring it up later. As always, your support is very much appreciated. Over 2,000 people have decided to subscribe to our brand new channel after the last episode.
Only?
And we are extremely grateful for that. At least I am. I honestly was not expecting it to be that many, but let's keep the pace going if possible. If we enjoy the work we're doing here, subscribing is literally the easiest thing you can do in the world. It's really just a click, and it does make a big difference.
And like and make fun of T90 in some way in the comments.
Yeah.
Any
totally.
engagement
please.
is good.
For free. He's expecting to get it, so might as well
Yeah.
give it to him. You can also listen to our show on Spotify. The show is called Town Center, and if you do decide to listen to it there, please do not forget to rate us 5 stars. All right, my friends, let's get going with Facebook. Let's start by talking about Facebook. We're obviously going to start with Tristan. He's our guest today. Tristan, Facebook first reached out to you in April of 2021. That was 1 month after Hidden Cup 4, if I'm not mistaken. They obviously contacted Viper and Hera. Don't know if there were others. I heard some rumors, but nothing official. So I'd love to know, Tristan, what was their initial pitch to you in that first message? What was their vision for the platform? And why were they willing to spend so much money in contracts with Age of Empires 2 streamers, which, despite everything, is still a rather small game in the grand scheme of things?
I wasn't sure how in depth we were going to get here. I'm really excited at how specific that question
my
was.
friend, just let it loose. Yeah, now it's the time.
So I think one important thing should be clarified. It wasn't Facebook that reached out to me. It was like, I guess you could say, a mediator of sorts.
Ooh,
So
okay.
a lot of these deals within the esports space, as I was then educated, is not the platform reaching out. It is someone who is familiar with the inner workings, who basically goes to a platform on behalf of the creator and says, "Hey, this person may be interested. What can we do here?" Right. So in my case, that was the situation. I got an email, and I never read my emails, and it was like, "Would you be interested in, switching platforms or whatever? I'd love to have a conversation." And I was just about to click off it because I was like, "Okay, this is wasting my time." And then like I recognized the name, and it was a company called Loaded. And specifically, we dealt with Brandon, who
Loaded.gg.
They have Ninja.
Yeah.
Ninja's move to Mixer, for example, was done by them, and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so he even clickbaited at the end of his little. He was smart. He was like, "I'm the one who represented Ninja and Tim the Tapman in their
Wow.
deals,"
So
and I was
assuming
like,
it's the same
"Ooh,
guy who contacted you as well.
Yeah, we had
Or-
the same guy.
yep." So anyways, I was like, "Oh, okay," and like, I was just curious, right? Like, I had only had one instance in the past where platformer tried to poach me, and it was Mixer.
Was it Mixer? Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so I had a general idea of like what they're offering, and at that time, I felt like that was, no offense, Viper. I was like, that I don't. That's the wildest thing. I don't think that makes sense for me at all. A little awkward, sorry.
No,
But
not awkward at all.
yeah, sure. So, anyways, so I mainly just listened based, out of curiosity, um, and because I find, even aside of myself streaming, I find the whole space, how the industry works, really interesting. And then I realized, like, I thought Mixer offered like 1.5 times, or it was like maybe 2 times my best year plus whatever income I'd make. I thought it'd be something like that, and I'd be like, that makes no sense, especially to go to Facebook. But then I started talking, and I was like, ooh, this is like, they're very serious, right? And then it was something where I was like, if we're doing this, I need to get as much as I can, basically, and show my worth. So it was one of those deals where I'm then like, this is what I brought to the table here. This is what I think I can do here, and so it started a lot of back and forths. Um, so yeah, I forget
What was the
all of
question
your
again?
question now.
All right. So the
But like
question
that,
is,
I feel like it is important to at least clarify that
absolutely.
Facebook did not reach out to me. I
Yeah,
wasn't
that's-
talking to Zuck,
That's
it
why
was
we
it was
have
actually
these,
like a mediator of sorts.
Yeah, and
So,
that's why we have these long format things, so you can expand, my friend. So yeah, but the question
yeah.
was, what was their vision? Did they talk
Mm.
to you? What exactly did they envision with the acquisition of you and Viper? And they wanted to have Hera, were not able to. So yeah, what was their vision for the whole thing, and why were they willing to spend so much money?
I mean, I can't answer why they're willing to spend so much money. I can't answer that part. I will say a big reason they probably had to is because they recognized where they are in the pecking order of things. They were not going to get viewership otherwise, which was a big part to play. I also think that COVID and like, if you really look in depth, you have like a lot of these big businesses got like interest-free loans from the government, and they're trying to expand in different areas. So they're probably boardroom guys who don't understand anything about gaming are probably just like,
Wow.
well, let's just spend money, So there's that whole thing. But like the vision that they portrayed to me, it was more so like how they can benefit me, not like for Facebook gaming as a whole. So there's a lot of back and forth on, obviously the basics of like how long I would stream, but then what type of content I would have to stream, and stuff like that. And so I didn't really have, like, they never came to me and made it clear like, hey, we want to overtake Twitch or anything like that. It was more of like a personal level of, what can we do for you? What are you looking for versus, what are we offering? But there was the one big thing, like I had certain things that I was like, if I'm doing this, this needs to happen. And one of those things was people being able to interact on accounts, like a gamer page is what they called it. That was not functional up until the month that I Viper's laughing. That was not functional up until the month that I signed.
Banned. I remember because I made like a secondary account,
Yeah.
and that my main account got banned because I had
That was just our mods, Nelson. Everyone else was just a bug.
It continued throughout the whole phase as well, where
Yeah.
like the gaming accounts would continuously get banned.
Yeah.
And people just had a lot of issues being there, unless they're there on their real account, which a lot of people don't really want to.
Yeah, but like that was to expand on that a little bit more. Like that was something I was literally like, that's a deal breaker for me. It's one thing to come to Facebook, but I was like, I need people to be able to make a page. So my whole Nelson, I'm sure you remember me reaching out to you, alluding to the fact that I was going to go to Facebook, maybe want to do a podcast, and that was in like
must have been May or June or something.
Yeah. So at least in my case, everything got delayed because I was like, I need to see that functional. I didn't. I just loaded up my own, went to a Facebook streamer and tested it. I didn't know that people's accounts were going to get banned and that it was going to be a massive headache. I found that out after the fact. But that was like the one thing vision-wise, feature-wise that they really showed me was like, hey, this is a sign that, this is something you really wanted. This is what all of our creators have wanted. So we're doing that now. But it still was like a very much it was an unintuitive thing on their platform. It did not feel like it didn't feel like it worked properly. So
I mean, you have to create a whole gaming page to have an account in itself. That's like that's a pain in the butt already.
For people who already hate Facebook, it's just like one extra layer. All right, but the thing that's interesting to me from what you just said there, Tristan, is that they didn't really tell you we're trying to expand as a service. Even though that's the impression that I always had, that it's something they're actually trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing that makes sense is that Age of Empires 4 was coming out.
Right.
It was in COVID times, obviously, and Age of Empires 4 was coming out. And from my understanding, it was like, we need to have you sign before. Because I had the same situation as him, where a mediator reached out to me and like, hey, would you be interested? And I was also like, I just said no right away from the start, first time. But they kept following up. That was the issue, right? And my understanding was that they needed confirmation before Age of Empires 4 was out. So in my understanding, the reason they wanted Age of Empires 2 streamers, the most popular there, to join before Age of Empires 4, because who knows, Age of Empires 4 was having the hype and people were like interested in it, and
obviously
that's my understanding that they wanted us there because of Age of Empires 4.
Go
on.
I have an interesting story as far as that's concerned. So a lot of the back and forth that we ended up having with them was just on like contract terms. Never done anything like this before, all these specifics, right? And again, the basics are like hours streamed. And then, of course, it's like, what are you doing? And then another big thing, which Facebook was very willing to compromise on, which I think the community doesn't appreciate because they didn't realize what it would have been originally, is like, how much can you put to YouTube? How long can you wait before you put to YouTube? Which not only did they do a lot for Viper and I financially, but they saw the benefit when I went to them and was like, if I can only upload 15 minutes from a stream to YouTube, you're never going to have anyone show up here. Like, my channel's dead. Like, I can't, those types of things. So anyways, lots of backs and forth. They compromised, did a good job in terms of allowing us to be very free and expanding our content there. But at one point I was on a call, and because originally in my terms, it was like, I think it was only Age of Empires 2. And when I knew with my hours, even though I mainly do Age, I was like, I would like the freedom to do more. And they're like, oh yeah, we could change that. It's like, because you're probably going to want to do this Age of Empires 4, right? And I'm because they're like, because it's going to be super hype. Like, you could tell that a big reason that they wanted to have a conversation with us was because they assumed the next game was just going to replace 2, because 2's old and 2, And so I was just like, yeah, like, it's weird, like, chuckle, yeah, for sure. And then I quickly, when we got off the call with Facebook, I spoke to my guy. I was like, it's not written in there, I have to play that, right? He's like, no, it's like any gaming whatsoever. I was like, okay, good, we're fine.
Interesting, because I was just wondering, when the game started tanking, the numbers started tanking from AoE 4. I was wondering was there like any pressure from them? They just keep streaming Age of Empires 4, or just in general, was there any pressure to stream a particular game from Facebook's side?
At least I can only speak for myself, obviously, but for me, it was never, they never said, yeah, you have to play Age of Empires 4. I obviously conveyed the message, hey, I'm a player, I want to be competitive, I'm going to play AoE 4, of course, but they never told me, yeah, you have to play X amount of this or X amount of that. And so I had freedom to do whatever I wanted, which was also good for me because, I knew most of my AoE 2 fans wouldn't like me playing AoE 4 because
you knew from the start? I mean,
yeah. Because of that, I also felt like I didn't feel any pressure when I started playing AoE 4 because on paper, financially, I wouldn't have to worry about just committing on the game, right?
Right.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of also a little bit of pressure off my shoulders, given that I wanted to spend the first 1-2 months of AoE 4 pretty much only playing AoE 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I believe was pretty obvious from the get-go was that you were never going to be able to have the same amount of viewership you had on Twitch. And I'm sure you guys knew that, right? So with that in mind, was the average viewership you had during these 2 years in Facebook pretty much what you were expecting, or were you just a little bit disappointed? Let's start with you.
I would say it's pretty much expected. I think usually when I played AoE 2, I don't remember the average exactly now, but like when I played AoE 4, it did dip down to like around 100.
Mhm.
And if it was over that, it was like a good day for AoE 4. So it wasn't pretty in that regard. But you know, in AoE 2 terms, it was like I mean I understand where people are coming from and why they wouldn't want to go and interact and be on Facebook. It is what it is. It was pretty much expected on my part.
What about you, Tristan?
I mean, I expected less viewership, but I didn't expect it to be so low. I felt while there were drawbacks to using the service, that I could bring, a certain level of entertainment or whatever that could bring more. As for what more, I don't know. Like maybe a couple hundred more a stream was kind of my feeling.
Do you have an
Uh,
explanation of why it was so low?
I suck.
Well,
Fair enough.
No, well, so I think there's lots of factors. So the first factor which comes to mind is when I streamed on Twitch, the whole basis of if I was live was I'm bringing my best work all the time. I'm not necessarily like going to bring a subpar product, because if I think I'm going to bring a subpar product, I'm just going to go offline, because the business model is bring your best, you get support because of it, right?
Mhm.
On Facebook, for me, I had to do more hours than I'd ever had to do before. So I could not cast 8 hours a day at my best. I sometimes, I could do that, but I couldn't do it all the time. So there had to be like a compromise of the level of quality I'd have to bring. So I'd play, and sure, people watch me play, but that's not what I'm known for.
Rocket League,
I
yeah?
I do Rocket League and
Yeah.
other games,
I feel like
just to try and pass the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, when
There
you
was
have
like
that
roller
barrier,
coaster. Wasn't there like a roller coaster game from time to time too?
yeah, I did that too. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Don't forget about Farming Sim, all right?
Uh-huh.
Don't forget
I
about
saw
the farm.
that too.
I mean, I did
Um,
the same. Like I played like Hearthstone Battlegrounds
Oh, I
and things
Yeah.
like
remember
that.
too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just
But
pretty
like,
much.
if you have a barrier of entry,
Mhm.
if it's already tough for people to come to Facebook,
Yeah.
and then you show up and the guy's not doing what you know him for,
Mm.
it's just another reason for them to be like, maybe I'll just wait for the next cool YouTube video.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of it. The other thing was people hate change, dude. Everyone hates change. And like, even if it was the same product, if it's slightly less convenient for them, it feels
Mm.
slightly off, that people are, when it really comes down to it, even though they might like support us, still subscribe even, it's just like, well, it just doesn't quite click for me. Change sucks, so I'm going to go wait for
Mhm.
that video
What I
later.
was
So,
surprised about, this really surprised me at first, was the vitriol regarding Facebook. How many people actually really hate Facebook? Now, I'm
mm,
aware of all the negatives about Facebook, and I don't particularly enjoy Facebook, but I just thought, like, why is Facebook so much worse than Twitch or Amazon or Google? So to me,
yeah.
it was a big surprise that a lot of people really seem to be focused on this thing. Facebook is just a no-go. It doesn't matter how good the product is. I'm just not going to go there.
Yeah, for me as
Yeah.
well, it was like I didn't have much. I honestly didn't know too much about all the in quotes bad things they had done that people were upset about. I obviously had heard in like on the corner of the internet about this and that here and there, but I wasn't aware of how much negativity people actually had towards it.
Same.
Yeah, so that definitely caught
Yeah.
me off guard a little
It's maybe a
bit.
generational thing, I think.
Could be, but also it's like for me, I thought the main thing would be like, oh, we have to use our real accounts. That was going to be their big, but
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
had more of an ethical approach to their
Right.
absence. Let's say.
Absolutely no
Well,
Facebook, no go.
but here's the thing, though. It is so I actually only really got to think deep about this because of my move to Facebook, and I've applied this in other areas of my life. Like, it is extremely easy to take a hard stance ethically or morally on against something if you not using that service does not affect your day to day life, right?
Mm.
But even if you stack up the things that Amazon has done, or Google, whoever, right, Apple, even if you stack that up, And it's in comparison, people, even just subtly in their brains, they have to be more self-aware. They have to inconvenience themselves then to take a stance if they're using the product. Like people probably who are very upset with you and I coming to Facebook Viper were typing that on an iPhone,
Yeah.
wearing a Nike hat, while like you just go down the list. So it's like
We
with
went through
Facebook,
this.
a lot of people weren't using it. So it's
Yeah.
easy to take the moral stance because they had already moved on from that.
Yeah, we talked about
But
this
if
in
they,
episode 4. A lot of people are not happy with our commentary.
We talked about
Oh.
kick and such as well. Then it's like,
okay, I got it.
when you add up everything else in life, you will always find bad things no matter where you look.
Yeah.
Of course, some are worse than others, but
and that's tricky because you don't want to look at life like that and say, well, everything I do is going to have something, and just like not try and make a stand for something. That's not what we're trying to say. But yeah, I think for people, it was very easy for them to have a strong moral stance against Facebook simply because they did not rely on a Facebook product that frequently for their day-to-day lives compared to the other things.
And there's like our interactions, like who are we interacting with? We're interacting with great people behind the scenes. Like for us, it's all positive experiences with the people we're working with. We don't see that in like so-called bad side of Facebook, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let me go back to viewership. Was Facebook disappointed? Did they signal to you? I mean, were there any goals set for you guys? We want you guys to grow this much and to reach this amount of viewers.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know if they checked my channel once. My whole 2 years there. Like I've never had a single comment about anything I did on my stream.
You would think they would check it all the time. I mean, considering the amount of money that was involved, right? But,
well, if you're a small fish in a big pond,
I guess,
full of a bunch of sharks or whatever.
What about you, Tristan? Did you hear anything from Facebook?
No, there was no. I mean, a big part. I thought in negotiations, I thought it was going to be sure, like here's a salary, but you have to meet metrics. That makes sense.
Right.
I thought at the very least it would be mixed, but no, it was solely based on hours. And which was obviously fantastic for us because there was less pressure on us to meet metrics when clearly it would have been rather hard if they said even to hit 15 or 20% of whatever viewership we had before. I had interactions with them, but it was solely based on like, can I go to this event? Can I like restream Red Bull, for example, on like things like that. It was never any like, hey, how's content going? Like, how can we help you today? Nothing.
But that's it. Whenever we did reach out, they were super forthcoming and welcoming. Like they always wanted to 100%. Help whenever we brought up something.
That's a bit different from Twitch, if I understand you guys correctly.
It depends. Twitch are a bit more less personal in their responses, at least from my experience. It's more corporate. Well, here I felt like I was actually interacting with a person and like a person that could talk to me and understand my needs and my requirements. And
yeah, I agree with that.
All right. To you specifically, Tristan, I wonder, did you feel like you became less influential as a personality in the scene because fewer people were watching you? I mean, when you were on Twitch, you had people posting clips of your stream on Reddit all the time, but I don't think I've really seen any of these clips on Reddit in the last 2 years. And I think with Viper, this is probably not as much of a problem because he's all the time on streams. He plays tournaments. He finishes first and second all the time. So did you feel less heard in these 2 years?
I think influential and heard's a bit different. I felt as influential. Yeah, I felt as influential as I was before. If anything, I felt like if I ever had a bad take or opinion and it wasn't heard, that was good. Because then I'd have like a week to think about it. And I'm like, oh, actually, I'm like, no, come on. I'm not going to give you a list of my bad takes here. So that aspect was actually quite nice. But on the flip side of that, it's like if I had a really good cast and I like finish, I'm like, oh my God, like I was at the level that I aspired to be at, which is hard to reach. And then I had 350 people watching. And then, we've great content creators all around the scene, but like I see some of the viewership other people got. And I'm like, at the very least, I was worthy to like tie that, because I had that whole mindset from Twitch. Like I remember what a good show and a good cast could bring. So that part was tricky. And I definitely felt I was not undervalued by the people who showed up and watched the videos and the streams, but there was a part of me that was just like kind of dejected a little bit if I put on a really good show or put in a lot of effort and, the results weren't there like they were on Twitch.
Orion, when you finished your stint at Mixer, You said there were a lot of promises that were made before you
Mm-hmm.
signed the contract, but a lot of them were not kept.
Yeah.
Was that the case with Facebook?
No, Facebook delivered. I mean, like with Facebook, it was. Well, if we go back to Mixer, like a lot of people bring up Mixer as well of greedy Viper, Mixer, I would have made more money if I stayed on Twitch, I'm sure. But Mixer for
When you
me,
made the move to
yeah,
Mixer.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Mixer for me was first of all, I was in a bit of a down spiral regarding my motivation on streaming. So I wanted something else, something different, Matt Salsa had created the platform, which was like, oh, cool, a friend of mine as well. And when I talked to them, it was like, yeah, we're gonna fly you out to I don't know where they were having their offices or whatever. We're gonna do like a podcast show with you and about Age of Empires. You're gonna be the front person of Age of Empires. Like you're gonna show up when people boot up the game, they're gonna see the vibe, like a lot of things like that. And it's like
And none of that happened.
none of that happened, but it's like I realized in like that's where my first type of contract negotiation thing started, where I got the experience that I have now, which is a bit higher, not great still, but like I could tell then like a lot of the things he said was he knew I wanted to or like to hear those things, so he said them, but obviously I didn't have it in writing, so it's like that's everything you want in life that you want contractually,
in writing.
it has to be in writing, because after a while, like I reached out to like Cision, for example, from Forgotten Empires, like, hey, by the way, they said this and this, and like I was gonna get exclusives before anyone else on like new DLC and things like that. I was gonna be
nothing about that.
I was gonna be the first one to stream and like post YouTube videos of these things. Yeah, he was like, sorry, we had nothing to do with this. Like what they said, we cannot do anything about, right? So it's like that was my main motivation for Mixer, right? But obviously none of that came to fruition. So with Facebook, it was obviously a little bit different. I mean, it's no secret. I think both me and Tristan moved there for financial reasons. There's no reason to hide it or pretend anything else, right? So that's what it is. And they delivered on their promises, and I delivered on mine. So
what about with you, Tristan? Because I seem to remember there were talks of a Facebook-sponsored event or something like that. I might be misremembering. I'm going to be honest, but what about promises kept? Or promises made, not kept with you?
So in terms of the contract, everything is similar to Viper, where they met everything that was promised legally to me. What I really wanted to do, because we clearly had Facebook at a state where they were very interested in Age of Empires and they were willing to spend a lot of money on Viper and is I felt like, how sick would it be if I could do an event? It works. Facebook wants viewership. They're already paying us. So we could then have an event as well. And it's just more reason for people to come to Facebook. But, I thought of that prior to officially signing. And I was basically told, like, listen, like, it took months and months of back and forth to get to this state where you're really going to be happy. Sign it. Don't add anything else in here. And then you could maybe have those conversations with them later. So what that means is everything to like kind of secure everything for me was done. And then after I started on Facebook, I started the ball rolling on conversations there. And I don't know how to word this. It was very likely that a massive event. Okay, sorry, my cat just walked in here, scared me. It was very likely that we would have had a very big event sponsored by Facebook, but the viewership wasn't quite there. Like they knew it would be lower, but the viewership and the energy, I guess you could say, surrounding our moves made them back out. So it's disappointing, but understandable on their part because they already supported, Viper and I so much, and they were correct to kind of maybe read the room. So I sometimes wonder if I could have done more, and like could I have teased, certain things and like maybe hype things up a little bit more, but I didn't want to tease or hype anything up and then have it not come to fruition.
Deliver.
So
makes sense.
Yeah, because it's always like what do you call it? A double-edged sword. Because if you announce a big tournament, that it's likely that a lot of people are going to show up to watch the tournament, right? But if you don't announce anything, then you're not going to have any viewers. So I wonder if that was part of the negotiations a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't. There was nothing legalese wise
right.
that incorporated the event because like I said, there was a lot of back and forth to get to the state of what I could upload to YouTube, the frequency of it, the amount of hours I had to stream, the financial side. That was a long process. So it was very much important to me to just kind of get that guaranteed first. But yeah, like, I don't know. I was also very announcement shy because I had done the announcement to come to Facebook, and people were not incredibly pleased with that. And
That's
there
fair to
was a
say, yeah.
quite a bit of negativity. So I was like, keep my head down. I'll do what I can do and try my hardest. I don't want to tease any announcements right now unless I know that this thing could happen. So I would say that is the one disappointing aspect of how everything transpired with Facebook, because it could have been really, really sick and it was really promising, but it's understandable that it probably panned out the way it did.
Yeah.
All right, so then I'd love to hear from you both from a purely personal perspective. What were the positives and negatives of this Facebook deal? And I feel like both of you already talked about the positives over the years, and feel free to talk about them again if you want to. But I feel like it would be more interesting to focus on the potential negatives, because obviously, as long as you were under contract, you weren't able to speak about these things. But now you are. So I'd love to hear your perspectives. Let's start with you, Uri.
Positives, what I enjoyed was, first and foremost, I enjoyed it was actually fun to go through the whole negotiation experience, It's like, wow, we're in the big leagues, like we're discussing contracts back and forth, like lawyers got involved.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, thanks to Tristan, he was a little bit further than me in the contract
So you got his lawyer.
negotiations, yeah, and I think it was during Red Bull where I talked to Tristan
Yeah,
about it, and
yeah.
he recommended me his lawyer. And I don't remember which Red Bull event it was. Probably it was the fifth
5.
one.
It must have been 5.
Yeah.
That's the one I won, I think.
Casual aside, obviously.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, like that was cool. I went after one of the days. I went to my hotel room and had a Zoom call with the lawyer that he recommended
Tristan's
me.
lawyer.
Yeah, because even then I wasn't 100% sure that I was going to do it. I was pretty sure I was going to do it, but I remember even Hera back then as well was he asked me to come outside and we talked about. He asked me like my opinion about his offer and such. And yeah, like honestly, I told him that his offer was bad because he shouldn't take it. I think he got an improved offer. I mean, he talked about it as well himself. But yeah, on that as well, I just want to say I'm pretty sure in Tristan's case as well. Obviously, a lot of people are going to view us as greedy and like we did this and that over our community and this. I don't think they realize what kind of offers we turned down before we eventually accepted, because we
Yep.
wanted to stay with our communities, because we wanted
Yep.
to be where we were comfortable, and like we both had comfortable lives at Twitch as well. But it's like at some point, after like months and months and back and forth, at some point it just became a number where it was like, how can I
Impossible to
sit here
refuse,
and
yeah.
look? Yeah, because also for me this is a once in a lifetime opportunity because of Age of Empires 4 coming out. I think that's the only reason these crazy contracts came around,
Right.
and I don't see that happening again. So yeah, but yeah, positives, negatives, we were there. Yeah, like I think the positive part for me was how much more I could interact with chat, more like on a not not surface level, right? If you're on Twitch chat and it's like 4,000 people and the chat is
It's always moving,
right?
yeah.
It's very much on the surface, like random joke here, random joke there, comment there. Well, here was more like a lot more back and forth and actual like
Interesting.
kind of conversations with multiple people at the same time.
Mhm.
But obviously, the negatives in that regard as well is that you don't get the same energy, right? As when the chat is going like
Yeah,
instead of
and like when a crazy moment happens in
exactly,
game,
man.
everyone
Yeah.
goes wild.
It's a bit different. Another negative for me was definitely the user interface from the streamer perspective as well. You can easily tell that Facebook Meta whatnot is not designed for streamers, right? It's very much like all these different media content like Instagram, shorts, reels. I don't even know what to call them over there anymore. It's been 1 week and I forgot.
You've forgotten already.
I think it's reels and stories and things like that. There's so many other things that like I struggle to find a page where I could check how many hours have I streamed this month. Like I couldn't find that. I had like a contract thing where it says like you have done this and this, but it was not updated frequently or all the time.
Mhm.
So it's like when I just wanted to check, okay, how many hours did I do so far? It was not
Yeah.
easy. For example, like a lot of these small find your way behind the scenes. It's so
Yeah.
much more intuitive on Twitch or
Mhm.
back then Mixed or whatever, because they are designed for streamers.
It's fine
That's their
tuned for streamers.
that's their core.
Yeah.
Streaming on
Mhm.
Facebook felt like in the
A
corner
side thing, for sure.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, obviously viewership it is negative, I guess, compared to what we were used to before. But besides that, I don't think there's too many other things that I would point out specifically.
Mhm. I find it interesting what you said there with the communication with the viewers, that it allows you to have a more let's say, deep, profound
Yeah.
discussion with your
But on that,
viewership.
visually, like chat and emotes and like visually chat, like nothing still comes close to how good Twitch has incorporated that community feeling and the chat and the emotes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's the same on YouTube, it's the same on Kick. It doesn't feel the same. Kick might actually be the one that is the closest to Twitch chat at the
Well,
moment.
it's like
but
a bit of a
yeah,
copy
it's a
paste
copy
anyway.
paste,
They ripped everything from Twitch.
Yeah, but I think that's where I would say that for me. Also, like for me, adding moderators was buggy the whole time. I still to
Right.
this day couldn't.
It was
Like,
so bad.
I added like a couple of them that I was interested in at first, but like when I wanted to add new mods later, it didn't work. At some point, I just gave up and like, okay, I'll just manage. I knew my time was coming to an end anyway, right? So it was like, whatever. Yeah, and it's like, I think that's where most of my negatives and positives were.
Same thing to you, Tristan, from a purely personal perspective.
Yeah, I mean, negatives pretty much everything Viper said. You know, the every single aspect of streaming, interacting, all that stuff was just way worse on Facebook. It felt like it was difficult to get basic things to happen. But huge positives in being able to connect with people on a more like personal level. Also, like even along those lines, like for me being a caster, I could have greater detailed conversations on certain things because I could pick up on certain things, which is harder with more viewers. I will say the positive for me that Viper didn't listed was Viper didn't list. You know, on Twitch there was never any massive compromise as a whole in terms of like what I brought to the table versus viewership. And what I mean by that is like I usually was always still doing something I was really passionate about and I really wanted to do, and then the viewership came with it. But there were times and there were moments where, due to the nature of streaming on Twitch, it's like I have to stream this event. I have to. I have to do this. I can't take that day off. I have to do this and that. I may need to present this in a way which is slightly different from what I would normally do, and that is just based because of how many viewers I had and whatnot. Yeah, so I think a big thing that I went into Facebook mentally with was I can't feed off viewership as much, which at times you would do, especially during like a community game cast or Lowy the Legends cast, where I don't have to be in depth in the early game. I'd always have a question to answer or someone to thank or something along those lines. Um, and so I really felt like I could just kind of sludge through certain aspects and not enjoy myself, or I could refocus myself on giving super in depth uh, commentary. And so I think a big positive, which I think may have translated into more success on YouTube. I don't know, honestly, because with YouTube, it feels like you could get viewership or you don't. It doesn't matter how good the edit is or whatever. But um, I felt like the last 2 years I became a better caster because the focus I put so much focus primarily on the game and it being a good quality cast. And I think it would have been very easy and is very easy if you have viewership to focus on the live stream aspect. And what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, at the expense of the overall show and the overall like video product later on. Um, and so that was probably the biggest positive for me as a creator was solely that I really think I became a better caster and was able to focus more on the game. And it'll be interesting going back to Twitch, trying to find that balance because there will be a lot of other possible distractions and whatnot. And I don't want to lose the level I think I'm at. But it'll be fun too to try and find that balance. But I think that was a big positive for me. I just being able to focus on the game without as many distractions was a really good thing the last 2 years.
I have one more that I struggled with a little bit, which was like I guess it can be viewed as a positive and a negative. But like we obviously had contractual hours to deliver every month. They gave us, if you had like an excused event month, they called it, you had 2 months to recover the missing hours for that month.
Yeah.
For me, I struggled a lot with that because there was 1 month where it was a Red Bull event. We had like a almost 3-week boot camp, and then we had it was like 2-week boot camp, and then we had the Red Bull event. So I was gone.
A lot of catching up to do.
I was gone like that whole month pretty much.
I think Debbie streamed a lot on your channel.
No, she didn't stream a lot. She played a little bit of like Valorant actually when we were on vacation in Norway. That's how desperate I was to recover my hours. But yeah, it was like a pain because the 2 months following was like of course, like there's always the like I have to play tournaments, I have to train for tournaments, I have to stream. It was like a lot
Yeah.
of things where it's like really hard to find the time to sneak in the hours.
Yep.
And when I had to recover hours on top of that, pretty much my whole month I had to recover almost. Those 2 months were really hard. Before it was like right before Christmas as well.
Yeah.
I was able to pull through in the end, but it was tough.
Yeah, that
All
was a
right.
negative for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I believe I already asked you this. I don't know which episode it was, so I'm just going to ask Tristan. There's no denying that there was a negative side, a massive negative side from both you guys leaving Twitch and going to Facebook. Viewership dropped massively on Twitch for the game, and it means less exposure for the game. And a lot of people were kind of sad and mad about that, especially because it was such a particularly tricky moment for the game. Age of Empires 4 was just coming out, and Microsoft was kind of redirecting a lot of the resources to sponsor AoE 4 tournaments at the expense of Age of Empires 2 tournaments. What do you have to say about that, Tristan? Do you feel? I don't want to make you feel bad, but do you feel bad about it a little bit?
I mean, the biggest regret I have about it all was how I handled the announcement. So we don't have time to talk about all this, and I think a lot of it should always be something I don't talk about, but I was pissed at Microsoft the day that I was going to Facebook because I had talked to them for a long time about the possibility and the direction I wanted for the game, and I didn't feel like they were going to they didn't believe in the same trajectory I did. So I was angry at Microsoft for that and AoE4 related stuff. I was upset and like heartbroken over Twitch because with 4 months of trying to contact them, they made it very clear that I'm just a very tiny fish in their big pond. So there were a lot of emotions there. And then there was the excitement, the personal excitement of being able to do what's best for my future and my family with Facebook. And then 7,000 people expecting a Hidden Cup announcement. And so there was all of that, not to mention all the signatures of things that I could and could not say. And so I feel like looking back, I'm like, my biggest regret is I could have communicated more clearly, but there were reasons I couldn't, either physically or emotionally. So yeah, that's my biggest regret. But in terms of like the community's trajectory, as much as live streaming is awesome and as much as I love it, I really feel like consistently, probably because we're all so close to the esports scene and talking to streamers, whatnot, people slightly overvalue live stream viewership and forget about video viewership. And I don't know what would have happened if I stayed on Twitch, but I know that I wouldn't have been able to invest as much as I had into the videos.
So
And
we're talking YouTube now. We're basically talking YouTube.
correct.
Mhm.
So like, I guess what I'm driving at here is I feel like my YouTube channel, I'm able to produce better videos now, which produces good reach. And my numbers went up while I was on Facebook.
Mhm.
That could have gone up even more if I was still on Twitch. That's the tricky thing. But there were positives, at least for me, in that. And I felt there were positives for other creators in the scene because Viper and I left Twitch to maybe open up opportunities for them that they wouldn't have otherwise had. That's a whole nother conversation. So I guess to answer your question, like I do feel bad that, a lot of people who enjoyed to watch streams weren't able to those 2 years. But I don't think the community dipped in prize pool compared to what would have happened if I was on Twitch. Like, I think I brought as much as I could. Situations otherwise would have maybe stayed the same. And I think that we had still pretty good 2 years for Age of Empires, right?
For sure.
Yeah,
It was bound to cap at some point in our rise. And I think that it was probably going to happen sooner or later anyways.
I think the drop in viewership, we've talked about this many times.
Yeah.
It's a combination of factors. And I think above all, it's Twitch getting worse with all the ads. And people are, and the pandemic being over.
Yeah.
I think a lot of factors do seem to prove this. Okay, folks. And to wrap up the Facebook discussion, I have to ask this, otherwise viewers would call me out on it. We know today that Hera was offered a $1.4 million contract to sign with Facebook, which he refused. Viper just said it a couple of minutes ago. His contract, Hera's contract, you would have. What did you say? You would say you would have refused Hera's offer as well.
Not that I said that I think he should refuse the offer that he told me back then. I think he got increased offer since then, but like the offer he told me back at the Red
You
Bull
would have
event,
refused
I
it.
told no, I would not refuse it. I mean, I would refuse it as well, but I mean, it's like I told him that he should refuse it. I don't think it was a good offer for him. That's what I meant.
In any case, I
Yeah.
think, if I'm reading correctly between the lines, both your offers are better than Hera's. So are you guys willing to reveal some numbers here?
Next topic.
What about
I
Tristan?
mean, you've read between the lines, right? You've read between the
Yeah,
lines.
I read between the lines. All right, 2 non-answers, but we're gonna respect that for sure.
Yeah.
So in any case, Tristan, you've now announced you'll be back to Twitch. First stream will be on November 4th. On November 4th.
Firth.
Let me read
First
you that.
stream on the 4th is the
No, you
first.
cannot read. No, that one stays in.
All right.
Go on.
All right. I'll leave it at the end. First stream will be on November 4th. So talk us through your whole decision process here.
Mhm.
I'm sure you considered all the alternatives, such as YouTube and maybe even Kick. So why did you ultimately choose Twitch?
Well, I mean, lots of reasons. In all honesty, it was a situation, very just so people know, like it was a situation where platforms are not cutting checks to people unless you're much bigger than us. So it's like you make the decision based on where you want to be, right? And what you think you can do. So there was that aspect of it was out, right? So that means anything that could be perceived as somewhat risky, like a platform we haven't streamed on before, for example. So I guess you could say like Kick or YouTube. There was no thing financially to soften the potential blow of the risk of doing so. Does that make sense? So especially like if you're streaming on Twitch, a big thing you have to factor in is purely from the financial side, the Prime subs, right? A lot of people can subscribe for free. So, that the financial side, it was like there was that. Kick is it just doesn't feel like a place where my community would thrive. I will say it's been, from what I can see, very good for streaming as a whole because they're the
Competition, right?
first. Yeah, they're the first like real competition that Twitch has had. They have started to be very vocal about how they think Twitch is bad in a lot of ways, and I think that has helped Twitch become better this year. But ultimately, the only two options for me was going to be YouTube, where Viper and I both have an established community, and then also Twitch. And I just, after taking the money with Facebook, it was just like, I want 100% comfort, and I want to be back where it feels good. And, YouTube has, from the technical side, great things going for them. I think it might be the best platform in terms of purely just watching the stream. But Twitch isn't that far off that. In
The
terms
chat
of,
experience is for me.
It's the biggest one.
Yep. The chat experience, the emotes. Like I miss emotes so bad, dude. On Facebook we had stickers, which was like so awkward.
It's the community feel on Twitch.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Right.
And I missed that, So I was like, it's kind of, when it came down to it, was a bit of a no brainer, just from that. And after the 2 years on Facebook, I wanted to run it back, be back where I was before, see, not have to adapt anything new, really. It will be adapting, but it's still something that will feel familiar. And I think viewers as well desire that. I know a lot of people would follow us to other platforms, Viper, but platforms are on Facebook, maybe. But at the end of the day, I think people, they want to like get to the stream and be like, oof, this feels right. And I feel like that Twitch is going to do that.
I saw a few comments on Reddit along the lines, there is no way Tristan's going back to Twitch after all the bad things he said about them. I saw a couple of this.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that?
I mean, I think I just had such a, I alluded to it earlier in the podcast, how heartbroken I felt when Twitch made it incredibly clear that I did not matter. As one of the first 1,000 partners, I think Viper was as well, streaming on them prior, like right after they became Twitch, prior to the Amazon acquisition. Like there was always this feeling of pro streamer, pro community. That is Twitch. And it was very clearly it changed away from that. And not only did they not respond to me for 3 to 4 months until I got a lawyer involved when I was trying to decide to go to Facebook, but they didn't even do like the typical, like, we're not able to do anything for you, but we care about you. They didn't even try.
Mm.
Like anyone who's ever been told no professionally knows that at least like a couple sentences, it was literally just like, yeah, we're not doing anything for him. And that was through somebody else. So yeah, I was like, I spent a lot of years there. I was really pissed and upset, but now after 2 years, you're just kind of like, well, don't take it so serious, dude. Like, just pick a platform and have fun. And now I'm not like at a state where I'm expecting this high level of loyalty and the relationship I thought we had before. So that I could definitely understand based on what I said at the time and how hurt I was why people would think that. But Twitch has so many, as long as you don't see Twitch as this very pro community all the time type of situation, there's so many positives between the streamer and the viewer. And and it's just, I think it's the best platform for streaming right now. So that's, I guess they were not wrong. The people who really listened to what I had to say and the emotions behind it, they were pretty on par, but basically I've kind of toned it down a little bit.
All right.
It's still a thing though with Twitch, is like, even though there's a lot of criticism, rightfully so, the positives still outweigh the negatives by far.
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
still a great platform and has so many positives. It's just there's these few changes they made in the last couple of years that have been really bad as well.
Yep.
But I have to say, credit where credit is due. They have started taking steps in the right direction again. I feel
Yeah.
like it, and that might be due to the kick up their butt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
look at that.
I don't know. All this positive talking about Twitch, Viper, leaves me with a question. Do we have a final destination for you? Is it going to be Twitch?
Well,
I mean, it told me what it's
That
going
was
to be.
sneaky. That was so
That was
sneaky,
very
Nelson.
sneaky.
I mean, the guy's talking all positive about Twitch now. What's this all about?
No, I still think Twitch has a lot of flaws, and yeah, I mean, I did
That was not the
post.
question.
I did post on Twitter yesterday a bit of a GIF
Of a saxophone.
of a
player.
saxophone guy, and I think most people knows what that means.
All right,
And
to
I
those-
I hereby declare that
Drum roll.
I'm going to YouTube. No, I'm also I will be back to Twitch, and I cannot
All
wait.
right. All right, you guys heard it. Viper's back on Twitch exclusively here on the
Nice.
Town Center podcast. Our first exclusive, I feel like.
Ooh, it was right by one of the hosts. Amazing.
You gave yourself an exclusive. I like it. Yeah, was it similar to you from what we just heard from Tristan in terms of decision making? It just feels like going back home, basically.
Yeah, again, like I don't think kick was ever really an option. Of course, I'm never going to say the words that I will never go to another platform. I've done
You've
that.
learned the lesson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we learned that. Yeah.
But it's like no matter what, because I can also see Twitch going down again and doing worse,
Yeah,
bad
right.
mistakes. And like even if there wasn't a contract offer from another platform, I would potentially be open to change if I feel like Twitch is heading down the wrong path, right?
Yep.
So I'm never going to say I will never move again. But yeah, Twitch still feels like that's where I'm supposed to be, and that feels like my home, and that's where I started this journey. And yeah, I just cannot wait to be back.
Amazing. Awesome. All right, so Tristan, you said several times the amount of money you got from Facebook was life-changing and that it sets you up for life and all these things. So I assume from a financial perspective, you don't actually have to keep streaming. You're just doing it because you like it. So does that mean your streaming hours will change? Is your content going to change?
I really want to stream,
It's fun.
So
Right,
yeah, it's
right.
fun.
That's what I said. You're doing it because you enjoy it, but you
Yeah,
actually don't have
100%. Like obviously like with Facebook, obviously if there was no money, I wouldn't have chosen to stream there, but I still would have streamed a lot. The nice thing about streaming is like it's like in general, if you're putting in, I mean, we've been lucky, right? If we put in good energy, good effort, and put our best, that there's always been viewers, which then leads to financial compensation as well. But the financial side has always kind of been the afterthought, because it's always like having fun and viewer enjoyment and interaction first. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I've been contractually obligated to do lots of hours, right?
I
It's
hear
so
that it's going to be
funny.
fewer hours. That's what I'm hearing right now.
It will be fewer hours, yeah.
All
It
right.
will be fewer hours, but it'll be more cyclical for me probably. So I think I'm
Mhm.
at a point in my career, still feel weird calling it that, but where I will go crazy for like a couple months and then probably have a month or so where I'm still streaming, but it's not 50-hour, 60-hour weeks. And that will probably be event based. But it's funny because there were points when I'd be burnt out during the Facebook stint where I'd be like, I'd tell my fiance, I'm gonna stream like once a week. We're just gonna go chill at a cabin and like just upload videos, and I just can't wait. And she look at me, she's like, "You're so." Can I swear? Are
Of
we allowed to
course.
swear? She's like, "You're
Bleep.
so full of shit." She's like, "The second you're back on Twitch, like you're not gonna be able to stop. All right, so you can just stop lying to yourself." So, yeah, I will be streaming a lot. I'm looking forward to having fun with it, but something that I need to do a bit better job of in my life is a little bit more balance.
Right.
So that doesn't mean I won't be streaming a lot, but I need to think of my long term and make sure I'm not on the computer 10 hours a day with
Mhm.
frequency. So
Absolutely. So there's then the question of multi-streaming or simulcasting or whatever people call it these days,
yeah.
which is something that Twitch now allows people to do. Now we've already made a video about this, Tristan. What you said, you probably are not going to be making whole use of this thing, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the past Twitch kind of forbade partners
Yeah.
from streaming at the same time to Facebook and
Mhm.
not to Facebook, to any other platform. So what's your thinking around this, Orion? Are you going to be making use of it?
I think you could stream in the past to multiple platforms, but you were not allowed to have a partnership then, as you
Right,
said.
if you are
So,
partnered.
so
Yeah,
a sub
yeah.
button would not be an option.
Right, but
Yeah.
now
Yeah,
you're
they
back on
recently
Twitch.
made changes. I think it's also due to, again, Kick. They bought a lot of streamers from Twitch, but they also want them to stream on Twitch at the same time because they want them to go there and bring their viewers there
Right, to
all the
explain this.
time,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I think Twitch also has seen at this and been like, it does make sense for us to cage everyone on our platform, right?
Yeah.
If they're confident in their product as well, I don't see why they should not encourage people to stream elsewhere as well. Because if they still think they deliver the best experience for viewers, they will slowly trickle to Twitch.
Right, but from
And
your perspective, you're going to use it, or
oh
you
yeah,
don't
okay.
see yourself doing it?
It's a tricky one. I also talked with Grubby about this, like his perspective of this as well, and he gave me some more insight into like how he expects this to play out and such. And he brought up something that I was not really thinking too much about, but algorithm on YouTube, for example. Let's say I do multi-stream from Twitch or to Twitch and YouTube. How does the algorithm on YouTube then affect my regular videos? If I'm live on YouTube and I upload a video at the same time, are people going to see that video? Is it going to be like drowned in the background? There's a lot of other things to consider as well. And I think personally, I will start for sure just streaming on Twitch, and then I'll maybe trickle in some if I'm doing some special event or something, 24-hour streams or something. I probably won't because I'm old, but then I might simulcast it to, for example, YouTube as well. But I think I will stick mostly to Twitch.
So basically what Tristan said in his own video he'll be
Mhm.
doing, right? Okay, Tristan, you famously said in an interview with me that you very likely wouldn't be hosting a hidden cup as long as you were streaming on Facebook, because in your own words, for all the work that you have organizing a hidden cup, you wanted to smash hard, and the numbers on Facebook would probably never give you that feeling.
Mhm.
So now that you're on Twitch, though, is the return of hidden cup just around the corner? Are you going to give us a second
Define-
exclusive, bruv?
Define what's around the corner.
Well,
I
is it
mean,
coming?
yeah, it's coming, of course, but it could be in like 16 years, Nelson. I don't
Well,
know.
is it like next year?
Yeah, it'll be next year.
Oh,
your
second
exclusive.
exclusive.
Whoa.
Let's
Yeah, woo.
fucking
Our podcast is
go.
taking off.
There are a lot of exclusives today. Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so to be completely honest, I don't know how things would have gone had I not gone to Facebook, but I think from like I always put a lot of thought into the timing of these things, and I felt like I probably still for a bit there it was like every year there was a hidden cup. I think there was a year gap between 3 and 4 anyways, and I think I would have probably had a year and a half, maybe closer to 2 between 4 and 5 anyways. But then it got to a point where I really wanted it, and I was like, the countdown was on. Like we were already less than a year on Facebook, and so I was like, it simply doesn't make sense to try and do it within the last 3 months of being
Right,
on
right.
Facebook. So to the people that really got tired of waiting for it, I apologize. It just there's timing on these things.
Well, now it's coming. Now they know.
Yeah, and like I mean, there's a lot of that goes into building up towards Hidden Cup, and I want the next one to be better in every way. So the planning has been happening for many months now, but
Wow.
it's closer than people think right now. I'll say that. So
So in case you missed it in the introduction, we have NAC 5 confirmed for next year, and we have a Hidden Cup 5 confirmed for next year.
Dead game.
Dead game. Confirmed. And I do want to remind people that I said 2024 will be a good year. Now you know why. Okay, so a lot of people have asked themselves, Orion, what does a return from T90 and now Viper to Twitch mean to all the other streamers that have been growing in the meantime? Mem, Dave, Hera come to mind, right? Do you think their viewership and sub counts, will they drop, or will we see the good old, a rising tide lifting all boats coming to action? What's your prediction?
I think it's really hard to predict. Obviously, a lot of streamers will benefit from short-term benefits from raids and hosts from us. I don't know what viewership we can expect when we return as well, right? But I still would imagine to have decent viewership, right?
I'm assuming your first streams are going to be wild in terms of viewership. I'm assuming it.
I don't know about Viper, but I'm trying to keep my expectations low.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I'm sure we're both hopeful numbers. That it will be good, but I don't want to. Yeah, you don't know, right? So obviously passing around our viewers will be good for streamers, but also I can see that some people might. Suddenly there's a bigger spread in Twitch Prime subs, right? That have been not going to me and Tristan the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them wants to return to our channels, so I can see it having some impact. But I hope that our absence have made a lot of viewers that we used to have appreciate the other streamers as well and want to continue to support them. And I also think that a lot of people may have stopped watching because me and Tristan were gone. So that we're mostly there for our channels. They might also return, and we might be able to pass them along, right? So I still think overall it's going to be a positive thing that we come back. But obviously the competition for viewership is higher on the top end of the spectrum as well, with when there's tournaments going on and casters, for example, Tristan, Dave, Memp, Nelly, all these guys will compete for the viewership. It's a bit easier as a player because I don't really cast; I just watch. So
you watch along.
I watch along, exactly. But I overall think it will be positive. But I could also see a world where some streamers might have some negative impact. But I hope not. I hope they have done a good enough job these last years where they are worthy of the continued support.
You're the XQC of Age of Empires 2, Viper, with the watch alongs. I had to say this.
Hopefully I'm more understandable when I speak.
I should have added something to my contract that if Viper watched me, I'd get 2% or something.
I asked for permission, okay?
Nah, I know. In my chat, there was no thinking ahead. It was the day of typing.
Yo, can I watch? And then it's just it's so good because he can't talk back. If he says something and I think he's wrong, I just call him out on it. And he cannot defend himself.
And I can't hear what he says. Exactly. I can't hear what he says to retort. So
but Tristan, going back to the question, how do you see this happening?
I'm really hopeful that the viewership can return to somewhere around what it was 2 to 3 years ago. I know there's a lot of factors that played into it. The main one is COVID, but I'm very hopeful that if the energy's there and with timings of certain things happening, I think it can be good. I talked about this the other day with somebody. I think that there will be more unique, if Viper and I come back and are getting good viewership again, I think that will lead to more unique viewers meeting other streamers. 100%. However, there still could be a slight decrease in the subscribers on other streams as well, right? Because there's only so much to go around. So if I had to give a more concrete prediction on how I think things would go, I would say more other creators are going to meet new viewers, which could be more long-term supporters. But I think at least initially, the overall sub numbers will go down for others slightly. So, but I think what you're thinking about as a content creator is normally the long term, right? And you want to have a community that sticks with you and is there and you have a good time with. So I think, I hope that people, if sub numbers do dip slightly, that they aren't too discouraged, because at the end of the day, I would hope that if Viper and I are doing our jobs, that more people are going to encounter all the different creators across the scene.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, Viper, what about you in terms of how many hours you're going to be spending on Twitch? Is it going to be similar to what it was before in the past? Or is it going to change a bit?
So for me, it will be less for sure. Because one of the issues I've had when I've been on Facebook is assigning the time to train as well, like
True.
behind the scenes, because I've had to do more hours than I ever did on Twitch. So it has led to less training time and less in that regard. So now it'll feel a bit more easy, like it will feel less stressful to okay, I'm just gonna
Scheduled training
today I'm just
sessions.
gonna train instead of streaming. So that's gonna be less forced. So yeah, that will probably lead to less hours. But obviously, I'm still gonna hopefully do more than enough hours that people will be happy with the content and won't be missing it.
And bring back the saxophone. All right.
Yeah, we will probably do that.
All right, my friends, let's move on to the Titans League. Season 3 is now over, and we had basically a repeat of season 2's final. That was the Viper versus Hera, which is slowly becoming sort of an El Clasico of Age of Empires 2. But this time around, it was Hera's turn to finish first. Viper and I and all the other GL players already got together to discuss the final. And if you haven't seen that video, I totally advise you to watch it. It's a pretty funny one. And it has been uploaded to this same channel. So from the perspective of the tournament host, Tristan, what were your thoughts of this season?
Whew. I mean, a mixed bag. Honestly, it was a great season, but it could be better. I'm always thinking about what can be better for the players, for the viewers, for everything. And there was like, maybe coming off a little bit too negative here, but there was some aspects because of how good certain players treated the format, like the freaking Andys and the Ganjis and the Barls, all these guys. And then there was kind of the flip side too, where I was like, oof, other people didn't completely buy in to the format. It was so much work. It was 4 months. I had silver. I was even training for silver as well. And then, there was that whole bracket, which then led into gold, because this time we had gold separate from platinum. And then obviously platinum was like the way it works is obviously perfect. You have the fun relegation scraps and the fighting for position, especially this year, right? When there was some uncertainty on where certain players would go into then the playoffs themselves. So it was a lot. And so I think even now, even though it was just like a week or two ago, it's hard for me to really form like all the proper thoughts on it all because it's still so recent and I still have that like level of exhaustion associated with those 4 months. But it brought season 3 brought everything that I wanted in everything that I wanted to be associated with promotion relegation, where was you had players who clearly took the opportunity seriously and went crazy. And then you had players who didn't, which is disappointing to me, but didn't take it seriously, get punished, which is kind of how it works, And I think we saw that this season. Like Group C was a good example of that, where you had like Andy come up, get top 8 after being promoted from gold. So there's lots to talk about there. But yeah, it was a great season. It was just a lot, and that's something I'll have to think about in the future is the length of time.
How was it like for you?
Well, it can be quite long for players as well. It's like
Yeah.
because each round is 1 week, so it's like there's a lot of the let's say 2 months are assigned to the tournament, and also it's like the prize pool it's good and has a huge spread, right? But it's also like then to get the top place, whether you get like 4th or 3rd, it's not that big of a difference, right?
Not big
So
as big a jump. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like for me personally, it's like I really enjoy the tournament and I take it seriously in that regard. But for example, for this time, I didn't train much at all. But it was also partly connected to the fact that I was like trying to grind my hours to get a little bit of a break before I move back to Twitch. But also like for me, it's also a good streaming opportunity, right? Because the financial loss of a lesser performance, let's say, isn't as big. So as a player, for me, it's a good tournament because I get to show tournament gameplay on stream.
Right.
But also it's like it is a bit long for the potential reward. But also that's from a player that I usually get fairly high positions, right? For the whole scene of player pool, I think it's a massive, huge tournament, and it's like really good for motivation through the whole top 50, 60, 100 players, right? So I think it's really important for the tournament that we for the scene that we have a tournament
to have
like
something
this.
like this. I totally agree. I heard a few people were not too happy about the maps. There were not a lot of meta maps, so to speak. Were you part of that group? Were you?
I think a few too many of the maps lend toward clown play, to put it like that. But overall, I think the map pool was still interesting, and we saw a lot of good games on it. Right? There was just less meta maps, which I guess a lot of people like meta for a reason because it's the meta. But I still think the map pool was fine, and yeah, I mean, yeah.
What was the thinking behind that, Tristan, to have so many non-meta maps?
Preparation, right? If you can be a talented player and not have to train because you can look at the map and say, "Oh, I know how to play that," then preparation doesn't matter as much. So we talked about Hidden Cup a bit earlier. Hidden Cup similar, where I want there to be a variety of different ways to possibly play it. Kind of tease players with the idea of like taking a resource there or switching up your build. When the options aren't there, then usually preparation doesn't matter to the same degree. So
I think
that's why like that's what I wanted from the map pool. And I think eventually there became a meta too. That was kind of the cool thing. Like fractal meta was figured out the last week, but like come week 1, you had people not have an idea. So yeah, I think it was pretty good. I've done this long enough to know that no matter who I get input from, what maps I put in, people are going to complain about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it always happens where like a good player will lose like on a map and they'll instantly say the map is trash or something. And then like 5 weeks later, they're amazing at it. Oh my God, it's amazing, So I just kind of become quite used to people complaining about maps because not everyone's liking the same stuff.
I think on for example, like the reason as well why people sometimes complain is because, like the wall. I think the meta on the wall got figured out really fast, so you saw the same thing over and over and over again, right? I think that's when people might complain more and dislike the maps. But like overall, I still think like Fractal, I think is a really fun map. For example, even though it is quite clowny, it's still clowning in very different ways most often.
By the way, Zawal, I find it such a brilliant name for the map. Such a brilliant name. Tristan, I know you like to keep a close eye on all the upcoming pros and talented players. So was Freaky Andy's performance this season a surprise to you, or did you see it coming?
I didn't see him getting top 8. I think you'd actually have to look at the predictions. I'd love to like say, yeah, I predicted top 8, but I broke my predictions down as in the site we made. So I predicted Andy, I think, to get 5th and Ganji 4th in that group. And I think what ended up happening was
that was slightly off.
You had Ganji 5th and then Andy 2nd. So yeah, 100%.
Very close to being first, needs to be said.
Yeah. And like I think it like very easy to say now. Well, Andy's been putting in good performances. You look at other qualifiers, he did this and that, but he beat elite players. In this group, he beat Jordan and he beat Hera, and then in the playoffs, he beat Dogao. I think it was in the round of 12, right? So I did not see that level coming from him. Just to be honest.
I think another player that people kind of sweep under the rug because he didn't beat Hera like Andy did. Barles.
Just qualified for Warlords again.
Yeah, but in Titans League as well. Insane performance.
Yeah. He was 3rd. He had to get a 3-0 versus Andy in order to get playoffs, which he ended up doing. Yeah. I mean, Barles and Andy were the standouts from Platinum for me. There were other players who performed quite well, but based on what they achieved, has to be those two. They played so good.
But Barles is such an interesting case for me. I'm always rooting for him because he started in the Jedi clan, which I was a part of back in the day. I used to beat him a couple of times, believe it or not. Yeah, it's always an interesting case to be such an amazing player, of course, and it's been at the top for a very long time now, but he's still missing the one tournament run, I believe, where he finishes like 3rd or 4th or whatever. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, getting 3rd and 4th is really hard. There's so many good players, right? Right now I would say we have like 12, 14 players that can get top 4, right? So
would you put Barles there? Not yet.
Not yet. But like Barles as well, people forget he was also at a Red Bull tournament.
Red Bull
right?
5, I believe.
Exactly. So like he has been a really good player for a very long time.
And again, he qualified to Warlords too by beating ACCM 3-1. Exactly. I didn't see the games, but ACCM has been playing out of his mind. So to beat ACCM.
Yeah. I think...
Yeah, go on, Tristan.
I'm sorry, I'm just so excited to say this. The thing that about Barles that worked really well in this season, and I'm sure worked for him with qualifying for Warlords, is he practices a ton. Okay. And his outlook on strategy is like really in depth. What we did this season was we had teammates ideally play each other in the first round because we wanted them to be able to practice together. Also, we didn't want any questions later on. It's like, did so-and-so let so-and-so get a win or two? Right. And so like Ganji and Barles played. And then like, from what I know, they probably played like 15 practice sets for TTL, which is just insane. And then I spoke to Barles before his series against Yo. Comment doesn't look too brilliant now because Yo did beat him 3-0. But I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this as a tournament host, but there are certain players I'm just like, if you want to talk drafts, you want to do anything, like let me know. Because I was like, I'm living vicariously through you guys because I'm not good enough. And so I was talking to him, and his sentence was like, I don't think Yo's strategy is really that good. And Yo is like 14-1 in the groups. So anyways, the preparation paid off is my point. And I think Barles we talk a lot about ability, but I think that's what's doing it for him right now, is that the guy really puts in the time.
Good to know. Tristan, we know Microsoft is usually the sole sponsor of every S-tier tournament in Age of Empires 2.
Yeah.
So now that we know Hidden Cup 5 is coming, does that mean, and we also know that Microsoft has a limit for how much money they'll give to each content creator each year.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean the Titans League will have to go?
Titans League. So to back up a little bit, I want Titans League. The first 3 seasons of TTL was supposed to be like a good foundation to build it up to something bigger. And so for anything I've done, I feel like TTL has the potential to appeal to sponsors. So the hope would be that TTL could run primarily as a sponsored event from those interested. And then Microsoft's sponsorship wouldn't necessarily be needed or needed to the same degree. My overall hope with TTL was to build it up to a point where, to Viper's point earlier, where the big names don't have to look at the final 8 places and say, well, there's not as big a financial jump for me if I am either 8th or 4th. But there could still be that big jump while also still pumping like solid money in towards the gold players and the silver players. That's kind of the goal. But speaking honestly, you need 6 figures. You need 100 grand to do that, or maybe 70. I don't know. So
do you think you need to have a season on Twitch first before it's realistic that you can reach out for sponsorship?
Honestly, I so rarely even reached out for sponsorship in the past that I just don't know what the climate's going to be like. I could tell you that Hidden Cup will be the next big event that I run. And if there was ever an event to show sponsors what is possible, then maybe that might be it.
Makes sense.
So, but TTL has been every 6 months for the last year and a half. It was structured that way because I knew my end date on Facebook was likely going to be mid-October. So that was planned out in advance. And I think if TTL continues, which I would like it to, it will not be every 6 months. It would be more so like once a year.
Right.
Which would allow more wiggle room for other things.
And possibly not sponsored by Microsoft, is what I'm hearing.
Potentially, yeah. Potentially. If the cap that Microsoft does have for me stays the same, which is likely, then I would have to then decide where I'm prioritizing things.
Yeah, and the money's probably going to go for Hidden Cup because it's like your blockbuster event, so to speak.
Well,
yeah, it makes total sense to me.
Maybe because like Hidden Cup, I could maybe get more sponsorship money than TTL. So
True.
that I don't know honestly.
True.
But yeah, ideally they
could
both still happen. They'll just be spaced more in the future.
What about Warriors Wandering Cup?
Oof.
Dude, I would love to do another Wandering Cup.
That was a fun one. You did it with Dave, right?
Yeah. That event was purely out during that period where I realized there were no events for Age of Empires 2. Like from what I knew, there was 9 months without a single Age of Empires 2 event.
Really? Well, it can't be. It must be like a S-tier, top tier event.
Yeah.
No chance it was 9 months.
It was after Red Bull 6 probably. Red Bull or
it must be after Red Bull 5. It was 2022 January.
So it was January. Yeah. When what I meant by that was when I spoke to the tournament coordinator and was like, "What's the plan here?" At that time it was like 8 or 9 months with nothing for Age of Empires 2, and it was all Age of Empires 4. And that's why like that was Dave and I, or like me freaking out to Dave and Dave being the calm voice of reason. But I was like, like this is insane. Like this is not good. Blah blah blah. We need to do more. And I always remember Dave was like, even if we can just get 5K. To do an event, that'd be so good. And I think that tells you like how uneasy things were at that time, that with all the prize pool money that we had, that was the hope from him, is like maybe we can just get 5K. So thankfully things changed and things bounced back big time, and none of that snowballed into something more. But WWC or Wondering Warriors Cup was so cool. It's just like we've got so many events happening all the time now. I can't even imagine throwing another event to work from my side. So
I posted a screenshot on Twitter like a few weeks ago where it was like I looked at how many events was actually going on now.
Oh, I saw it.
It's crazy, dude.
There's so many like tiny little events that people just do for fun. It's amazing
and
to
behind
see.
it is viewers, organizer, player. Like the amount of people involved is actually insane.
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, so during the month of November, we will have another major tournament running. Warlords 2 starts November 1st now. Initially they had planned October 31st. I think they've delayed it one day because they want to make sure that everybody's got the DLC, which is coming on October 31st. All right, and
there may be something else also happening in November, later that month.
Dun dun dun.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Just.
Okay, that's good. Is it a third?
Are we gonna have a third exclusive?
Wow.
Just stay tuned is all I'm gonna say.
All right. That's good to know. I mean, you told me about it a long time ago. I almost forgot about it. All right. Third exclusive. I'm gonna take that as an exclusive.
Third announcement of an third exclusive announcement of an announcement. I guess that's the meta these days, anyway. So.
Yeah, announcement of an announcement. True. Right. So Tristan. Well, first of all, Warlords. I loved the qualifiers. By the way, great games.
Shouldn't we talk TTL? Finish TTL. Hera was the winner.
Right.
We should shout out the winner.
Well, Hera. Well, I did talk about the final being Viper versus Hera again, a bit of the El Clasico of Age of Empires 2. And again, we talked about the games. Now remember, I actually redirected our viewers to watch the video that we made with all the GL players. But yeah, it would be nice to hear from you, Tristan. What did you think about the final?
The final was great. The final was awesome. What I loved about the final, back to what I said, is like there was some prepared stuff that would not have ever been seen from you, Viper, or Hera in week one, right?
Yeah.
But you got to the final, players' minds kind of changed a little bit on how certain maps could be played, and like Hera picking poles, for example, was a really cool moment. Hera's little counter, which wasn't a counter to your wagons on Hideout, was fun.
That was fun. That was fun. A lot of mind games. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like the U pudding, attempt. All that stuff was really cool. And
people think it was a pudding strat. It
was a doubt.
It was a doubt. I mean, yeah, people, but like they see Sicilians in the dungeon and they're like, "Oh, you pudding, right?" But there was so much more depth to that strategy. The doubt was cooking something. My execution wasn't good enough, but doubt cooked something really nicely there. Actually,
I love
like the goth strategy on
that was
Coast to Mountain was amazing.
That was also doubt cooking.
Interesting. Yeah.
He knows how to cook.
By the way, it's always fun hearing Dow talk about these things, how he came up with the strategy. Again, I can only advise people to see the video. It's really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go on.
No. I mean, it's like, I think that's what's so cool about how long the format can be, because it's like you think just when you think it gets stale and you're like, okay, well, now the players understand the map. This is how it's played. Then you have some variations come out that no one had really tried before. So it was really nice. I think it was the perfect final in terms of the level of play, but also the depth of strategy. And, great storylines as well the whole way through, because Viper in your group, we didn't know who was going to get first there. It was very close between you, Leary, and Tato. And then in Hera's group, right, there was 3 or 4 weeks where he was in second place and he wouldn't have gotten the bye. So it was amazing as far like you kind of expect with certain names, like, okay, they win their group, they go in the playoffs, they're favored to the final. But the other things you guys ran into along the way in group stage was kind of cool to see as well.
Yeah.
So
that group also was crazy with like Jordan Balls, Ganji, the whole story there. But that's what's cool about this format, right? There can be like the fights for the spots below first and second can also be crazy.
Yeah, by the way, in terms of like first stages of tournaments, I find that TTL gives a lot of excitement because of the play all three games. It's how long it's going to be. It's very easy for viewers.
In the Gold League, I checked the groups and I saw Kingston. He got 4th place in his group, but he won 4 out of 5 sets.
It was a 4-way tie.
4th.
It was a 4-way tie.
4-way tie.
Yeah.
Wow.
4 people tied on 9 wins, I think. And what make it even crazier was Kingston needed 2 wins from his final 6 games, sorry, so it was 2 rounds.
Mhm.
One of them was against Stark, who everyone had swept, and Stark got 1 win against him, and then Sito 3-0'd Kingston the final round.
Damn, that's
But, like,
brutal.
but the every win mattering thing
Yeah.
happened to Jordan as well, right?
Yeah,
Because
Clash of
Lan
Titans.
was
Oh, yeah.
destroyed by everyone,
Oh, Clash
and then
Titans,
Lan got that 1 win against
True.
Jordan, and then Jordan wasn't able to get playoffs. So
Yeah.
I think it's fun because you even saw a player like Draken who recognized his limitations. There
Mhm.
was a set, he may not agree with the statement, but I'm pretty sure that, like, here was a point where he's like, okay, 1 win is the only thing I'm getting here.
Yeah.
So, like, he would draft fully around 1 win.
Mhm.
And it was fun to see that. It completely changed it, because if it's a best of 3 or best of 5 between certain names, you just know, like, that guy could get a win or maybe 2 if he gets extreme Civ wins, but he's not
Yeah.
going to win the series.
Mhm.
With the play all 3, the underdogs have a little bit more to fight for, you know.
All right. Then back to Warlords 2.
Mhm.
Already made the whole introduction about the dates. It's going to start November 1st. Qualifiers were amazing, in my opinion. Biggest surprise has got to be MBL not being included in the
That
tournament.
was crazy.
Freaking Andy.
Yeah.
He's showing up to play Age of Empires 2. Were you expecting that? I mean, I saw a lot of people saying not that big of a surprise. To me, it was definitely a surprise.
I think it's not a surprise that Andy won, but it's a surprise that MBL didn't
MBL's not
qualify.
in-
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Coincidentally, Andy will be my opponent first. My first
Do
opponent.
we already know that?
Yeah,
Okay.
the matches are out.
It's set. Okay.
Yeah, it's set. Yeah, I mean, like I said, MBL not being there is also I feel a bit bad about it because I would like it for him since he also went full time
Me
recently.
too,
And
but
like,
yeah.
but you know, MBL like 3 minutes after the set was over, MBL was live on Twitch. The grind continues. he got massive support. So I think in the end he's not feeling too bad
Not
about
too
it.
bad. You did play Freaking Andy in the quarterfinals of the Titans League, by the
Yeah.
way. You beat him 3-0. Do you have like a good grasp on what makes him a dangerous player and what he has to work with still,
Well,
or he has to work on?
he's obviously tricky strategically, right? So just got to be like on point as to what to expect and be ready to adapt pretty much.
Which are your strengths, to be fair?
I would say normally I've done quite well on that, but I mean these kids today, you know, I mean he's not a kid; he's fairly
27, I believe.
yeah.
27.
So yeah, hard to say. I'll have to see. I also gotta like because we're gonna play on the new DLC as well, so like new saves will be
Right, no saves.
There's a whole new curveball thrown in there like one day before the tournament starts, which is a bit tough.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a little bit scared for that, by the way.
Yeah.
But, let's hope everything goes well.
Mhm.
Tristan, initially the qualifiers for Warlords had no prize pool attached to it. That means that even if you made it to the last round of the qualifiers and then lost, you'd go back home empty-handed, so to
Mhm.
speak. And as far as I understand it, Warlords was not the exception in this regard. Apparently, there have been other tournaments without prize pools for the qualifiers. You brought attention to this in the Discord server of the tournament, and whether it was because of you or whether they were thinking about doing it anyway, the rules were indeed changed, and I think players who made it to the last round and to the round before that in the qualifiers were now indeed given prizes. Why is it so important to you that players get prizes in qualification stages?
We're old. We've got to justify our time. But no, like we've got to justify our time, right? Yeah. So I think it was a donator. So the 50K from Microsoft still the main event prize pool, and then I think it's Sugar.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Max
full
Sugar.
using name. I just know the Sugar. You know,
Because it's a funny
contributed
part.
towards the qualifier. Big supporter of Mems, and he had spoken up in the Discord about it, which is awesome. You know, it's like, so I have a bit of a unique perspective where I trained with players for silver and TTL, and then I talked strategy and practice for gold. And so I interact a lot with the guys who are maybe getting close to getting top 16, top 30, and they're just like constantly one step shy of that, right? I also, on my 2 years on Facebook, grinded a lot more as a player. And so I got to experience what it's like to practice for weeks and then come one game short from qualifying for top 16. And, you know, for me, there's not a financial incentive when I play this. It's just the love of the game and the passion. But, you know, I speak to guys who are 28, 29, 31, 32, and they're telling me I should retire. Like, I'm just not good enough. And I'm like, you don't know how good you are. Like, you are so good. Like, you're so close. And so, you know, I'm talking to people who are legends of the game who are close to just stepping away from it. And that's why, you know, top 16 events are great. but there's such a big discrepancy between the main event prize pool and the qualifier, and I don't think that it's with the amount of money we have that it has to stay the case. So Warlords obviously has prize pool, but just to give you an example, the worst performing player in Warlords, I think it's 1,200.
I think they all make 1,000 for qualifying to the event, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so let's just say it's 1,000. I
Around
thought it was a bit
1,000, yeah.
more. Yep.
Don't quote me on this. It might very well be 1,200.
Sure. I mean, I'm looking at it, so I could double check that. But I think what's important is if you made it to the final round of both qualifying weekends, which means you played both days on the weekend, right? The maximum amount you could make is $150. That's both weekends, right? Because the way it's structured. And then if you're the round before that, you made $75. That's it. And I think, again, it's great that there's money in a qualifier, and Warlords is just an example. You look back at NECs, some hidden cups, and you look at the main event prize pool. And reality is, I think event organizers are, all of them, myself included, leaving a lot to be desired for the players right outside of it. And so I hope that that changes because I just see a lot of talented players just being in a struggling spot. Capwatch lost 3-2 to Hart. Then the next weekend, he ended up losing as well. Capwatch is trying to go full. He's been full-time for a bit. He's grinding. You had MBL as an example. Dogao as an example. Mihai's a young talent who's grinding.
Very close to qualifying as well against Sito. Mm-hmm.
And it's just, if you grind and you practice and you consistently get close and you're just off, after the second or third time, if you only made $75 for 2 whole weekends and you're late 20s and trying to figure out what your job is, there's a point where you, even if your desire is to be full-time Age of Empires or just a great talent, you just have to be realistic and say, well, that doesn't make any sense. So I've just had a lot of intense conversations over the last year with 5 to 10 different players who are insanely talented, that I hope that changes in 2024. And I hope that there's a world where the prize pools can still be high. The top players should still get more money. You can't incentivize them. You don't want them to not get more money, right? But I don't think there should be such a significant gap between the worst players in the top 16 and the players who were just 1 or 2 wins from getting into the top 16 in the qualifiers. So that's why I spoke up. And for those that saw the message in Discord, I hope that people realized kind of my heart behind it. Mem did, and Mem and Suga stepped up and did a bit, but I think it could be way more. If you look at the discrepancy between the prize pools and the qualifiers, oftentimes the qualifier, if they have anything, is 1%. Or maybe 2% of what the main event had.
To be fair, I think that's something that Mem does all the time. He's very receptive to criticism and is willing to improve the feedback of players and stuff like that.
I think most organizers we have in the scene at the moment are very much like that.
For sure, for sure. Yep. All right, then I still wanted to mention very quick, well, we just kind of gave it away in the introduction, but NEC 5 will have been announced by the time this episode is out. Huge news. I'm very excited about it. I've heard it's going to be in January, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen the trailer or anything, but I believe it's going to be in January.
Yeah, January. Qualifiers in December.
Qualifiers in December. Okay. Again, I'm sure all this information is going to be out by the time the episode is out.
It should have been published maybe an hour ago or so. Check Nili's channel to see the trailer.
Right. If you're hearing it here for the first time, make sure to go to Nili. I believe Caster is going to be same as last year plus Memb.
Correct.
That's what I heard. So Dash is going to be back. It's going to come back to Age of Empires 2. And Memb is going to now be here in Berlin too, which I personally love. It's just the whole community together. And the NAC 5 is all about that, in my opinion. Going to see Tristan here in Berlin again. I'm very excited for that. Do we know what the prize pool is going to be?
I don't know exactly, but I assume the news are out there. He's doing a little bit of an incentives thing where you can donate a certain amount of prize money to the prize pool, and in return you will get certain rewards. I know one of them is potentially selecting a map for the tournament. One of them is spending a day at the venue. So a lot of different incentives. Highly recommend you to check it out in case you're considering supporting it. There will be signed things from players. an evening without at the shisha place. Actually, I don't know
I
about
don't
that
think
one.
that's it.
I don't know about that one. But
I love the idea, though.
yeah, that
I
would be a
love
good
the
one.
idea.
But yeah, there's a lot of incentive like where people can support and get something in return. So hopefully a lot of people do that because NEC is a great tournament and we all want to be a part of it.
NSC 4 was amazing, man.
Yeah.
I loved it. Looking forward to this.
There's also one more tournament that just happened shortly. Like, it's a very quick tournament. A lot of people didn't really catch it. Warlords Waiting Room.
Waiting room, right?
It was a $6,000 tournament hosted by Kazva from the Turkish community.
I was very surprised because he announced he's leaving full time.
Yeah,
Age of
and then it's
Empires
like
2.
bam. But I think there was a Turkish sponsor that wanted to have a tournament, and
Right.
they just made a small tournament with exact same settings as Warlords. And honestly, for me, it was a really good event because I got to actually like intensify some training for Warlords right before it happens.
You made it to the final, lost
Yeah,
to Tato.
I lost to
is that
Tato in the
correct?
final.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Tato was the winner there, of course. GL Power. It's a GL podcast. Have to like hype a little bit. But yeah, that was a really cool thing for them. It was like surprising, just out of the out of nowhere, suddenly a $6,000 Turkish tournament.
All right, so last thing I want to talk about today. It's been a long episode already. The new DLC, the Mountain Royals, which by the time this episode is live should already be available to play. This DLC brings with it 2 new civilizations, the Armenians and the Jordans, and a massive rework of the Persians, and 3 brand new fully voiced campaigns. You might want to do that on Twitch now, Viper.
Yes.
I'd love to tell you the names of the campaign heroes, but I'm too embarrassed to mispronounce them, so I'm just going to go like that.
Can you try?
Okay, so there's the Tamar.
Okay.
There's
Sounds right.
Thor
Nice.
is the Great.
Okay.
I don't know about Ismail.
Ismail. Something like that, probably.
That sounds better. Yeah.
I wasn't too far off. So how busted are the new civs for you?
Honestly, I haven't played too much with them. I'm looking forward to train with them a little bit. I mean, like the difficult thing with Warlords is that the DLC is released one day before the tournament starts. So
It's tricky.
they did compensate by giving players more bans. So I expect a lot of those bans to go to the new civs. I think the civs are broken in their own way, but I also don't think they're like heavily outperforming the best civs on the best maps that are currently there, right?
Okay.
Persians, however, might be a crazy civ. But like we have all these small balance changes now that also will come in. Like Japanese, suddenly their cav archers will have like +2 damage.
I think it's going to be crazy
yeah,
good.
+2 damage against archers. I think that counts for skirms as well.
Yes, for
So,
all the armor archer class. So
there's-
it means Mengudai as well, Conquistadors, all those
There's
things.
a lot of small changes that have been like posted, like these upcoming balance changes that people aren't paying too much attention to
Slipping on it,
because
yeah.
of the Georgians, Armenians, the new Persian rework.
Yep.
So there's going to be a lot of things that we have to take into account for. Like Slavs got nerfed because their farming was too strong, from 15%
Yeah,
to
no,
10%.
it's back to that, right?
It's back, and they have faster moving monks than before. So they are like buffed from their previous nerf. There's going to be a lot of things that will change, and I think the meta for Warlords will take some time to settle. But yeah, new DLC. I think the civs are cool. They're fun. The mule cart is going to be very awkward to get used to with the whole. You can kind of mobile drop site. It's going to be interesting. But
There's a pretty hilarious video by Dave. I'm not sure if you guys
where
saw.
he did the full surround block. Yeah.
Yeah, Tristan, what's your thinking on the new civs?
I mean, very different, right? Like they changed the Dark Age, right? In terms of the strength, I think Yo is going to have a field day with the Georgians unique unit. That unit is so busted, it's not even funny. It's like Latis and Akeshik
Munaspa,
combined.
I think it's called.
The Manaspa, yeah.
What's
it's
the ability when they're together? They have higher
They
attack,
get
something like that?
one more attack per 5th unit of a knight or a Munaspa.
So think of like the Latis, where you get the extra attack from the relics, right? Well, here you just have to make more units, and you're getting extra attack. But it's also 25 gold cheaper than a Latis.
Yeah, but you don't take more armor though, so there's a little.
Yeah. So, anyways, I thought of Yo when I saw that unique unit. But it'll be interesting. Warlords is also quite short. It's only 3 weeks, so I think that there's not going to be as much time to really see in action whether things work or not, because players might not want to take risks until the later stages. But the biggest thing I'm actually excited about is the campaigns. I think that'll be good, and I think that's a direction they should go with a game that has so much history and with a game that has so many people who don't play competitive. I mean, maybe the Reddit screenshot where there's 150 civilizations is what will come of our game. I'm a little worried in that as far as that's concerned. But if they want to release DLCs, I think new campaigns is the way to do it. And they, as someone who's not a big campaign guy, I feel like they've jumped up a huge level in terms of campaigns from when like the first African Kingdoms campaign. I remember how brutal those were. But then like some of the new ones with the Poles and the Burgundians, Lithuanians, I think were all really good. So
The
I'm
Yadviga,
excited
it's
for
the
that.
only one I played, and I thought it was
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah. I think they have to do that though. Like they want to continue making money off the game, right? That's the only way
Yeah.
they can continue supporting it. And DLCs is their biggest way of making money. And
Yep.
yeah, single player content, like probably way more people still buy the DLC for the campaigns than us do who buy it to play multiplayer, right?
For sure.
So
For sure.
Yep.
it makes
For sure
sense.
that's the case.
Yeah, I think it'll be great.
All right, Tristan, listen, man, this was lots and lots of fun. I thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Let people know, when is your first stream going to be again?
November 4th at 15 GMT, which
All right.
is 11 a.m. Eastern, depending on what time zone people are watching from. So
Time zones, man.
Do you want to reveal yours as well?
Sure. Okay. So my next stream as well will be on Twitch. It will be on Friday the 3rd of November, and there will be a pretty good announcement there as well that you guys want to check out.
Ooh, I heard something before about
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will likely be live at 16 GMT.
All right.
Which is something
all right.
in Eastern that I don't know.
All right. For all of you guys who made it till here, that means you probably did enjoy the show as well. So if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have lots and lots of great content coming for the channel, and we're very excited to share it all with you. Tristan, once more, was great having you here, man. Great talk, and I thank you so much for being so open about all of this. I think people are really going to appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, it was a good time.
Cringe.